Hello friends, welcome and thanks for joining me today. As a pastor, I think that one of the biggest problems humanity has is its consistent, ongoing disobedience to God. It's a bold statement, so let's go back to the book of 1 Kings. At the time related in that book, God had already sent several prophets, but nothing doing on the obedience end. So this time God sent Elijah. Elijah's name means Yahweh is my God, and is spelled Elias in some versions of the Bible. Elijah's single-minded commitment to God might just shock and challenge us. After all, he was sent to confront, not comfort. And Elijah spoke God's words to kings in the northern kingdom of Israel, who often rejected God's message just because Elijah brought it. Elijah chose to carry out his ministry for God alone, and he paid for that decision by experiencing some tremendous isolation. Elijah claimed that there was no reality except the God of Israel, stressing the belief in the existence of one God. So here's what it says in 1 Kings 17. And I'm going to be reading 1 to 5, 8 to 15. So verse 1. Now Elijah, who was from Tishbe in Gilead, told King Ahab, "As surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, the God I serve, there will be no dew or rain during the next few years until I give the word." Then the Lord said to Elijah, "Go to the east and hide by Kerith Brook, near where it enters the Jordan River. Drink from the brook and eat what the ravens bring you, for I have commanded them to bring you food." So Elijah did as the Lord told him and camped beside Kerith Brook, east of the Jordan. Then in verses 8 to 11, then the Lord said to Elijah, "Go and live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you." So he went to Zarephath. There, "Would you please bring me a little cup of water?" A little water in a cup. She was going to get it, and he called to her, "Bring me a bit of bread too." And here's what the widow replied in verse 12. But she said, "I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house, and I have only a handful of flour left in the jar and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die." But Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go ahead and do just what you've said, but make a little bread for me first. Then use what's left to prepare a meal for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There will always be flour and olive oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends rain and the crops grow again." So she did as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many days. Now we fast forward a bit to 1 Kings 18. And here's verses 1 to 4. Later on, in the 3rd year of the drought, the Lord said to Elijah, "Go and present yourself to King Ahab. Tell him that I will soon send rain." So Elijah went to appear before Ahab. Meanwhile, the famine had become very severe in Samaria. So Ahab summoned Obadiah, who was in charge of the palace. Obadiah was a devoted follower of the Lord. Once when Jezebel had tried to kill all the Lord's prophets, Obadiah had hidden 100 of them in 2 caves. He put 50 prophets in each cave and supplied them with food and water. Verses 7 and 8. As Obadiah was walking along, he suddenly saw Elijah coming toward him. Obadiah recognized him at once and bowed low to the ground before him. "Is it really you, my lord Elijah?" he asked. "Yes, it is," Elijah replied. "Now go and tell your master Elijah is here." Now, verses 16 to 18. So Obadiah went to tell Ahab that Elijah had come, and Ahab went out to meet Elijah. When Ahab saw him, he exclaimed, "So it is really you, you troublemaker of Israel." "I have made no trouble for Israel," Elijah replied. "You and your family are the troublemakers, for you have refused to obey the commands of the Lord and have worshipped the images of Baal instead." And then verse 22. Then Elijah said to them, "I am the only prophet of the Lord who is left, but Baal has 450 prophets. And now we get to a series of tests to prove who is the true God and who is the true prophet. And when all these tests were done, God blessed the sky and allowed it to rain. Now in verses 41 and on. Then Elijah said to Ahab, "Go get something to eat and drink, for I hear a mighty rainstorm coming." So Ahab went to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel, bowed low to the ground, and prayed with his face between his knees. Then he said to his servant, "Go and look out toward the sea." The servant went and looked, then returned to Elijah and said, "I didn't see anything." 7 times Elijah told him to go and look. And finally, the 7th time, his servant told him, "I saw a little cloud about the size of a man's hand rising from the sea." Then Elijah shouted, "Hurry to Ahab and tell him, 'Climb into your chariot and go back home. If you don't hurry, the rain will stop you.'" And soon the sky was black with clouds. A heavy wind brought a terrific rainstorm, and Ahab left quickly for Jezreel. Then the Lord gave special strength to Elijah. He tucked his cloak into his belt and ran ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to the entrance of Jezreel. It's an interesting story. But think about those amazing miracles God accomplished through Elijah. We've seen or heard of all these miracles, and still we have a hard time obeying. Go figure. Don't you think that we would do well to focus on the miracles of today, of knowing that our living God loves us? Hey, that's you and me, all of us. So be blessed until we meet again.